Welcome, everyone. I'm Rebecca Snyder with the Maryland Delaware DC Press Association, and I am delighted to welcome you to Inside Tips for Landing That Journalism Internship. I'm joined by our moderator, Tom Linthicum, Adrianne Flynn, Jackie Jones, and Dawn Fallick. And Tom, I'll turn it over to you to make our formal introductions and get our panel started.
Thanks very much, Rebecca, and good morning, everyone. I am Tom Linthicum. I'm the president of the MDDC Press Foundation, and we are the folks who supplied the funding for the internships from the association. We are always on the lookout for new and better ways to promote the intern program, to find and entice more applicants into the program. And in recent years, we've been encountering situations where more and more of our applicants have not applied for internships before. This is their first time at the rodeo, if you will. So we decided this year we were going to do this webinar and pitch it more toward those kind of folks to help them be more efficient, more effective in terms of their applications, whether they land an internship with us or somewhere else. We hope this will improve your skills and your confidence level as you get ready to apply for internships. So let me quickly mention our three panelists again to be sure that you're up to date on them. Dawn Fallick, she's an associate professor from the University of Delaware. Jackie Jones, the dean of the School of Global Journalism and Communications at Morgan State University. And Adrianne Flynn, Senior Lecturer in Internships and Career Development Director, also known as the Intern Queen. So there is an amazing amount of experience and knowledge and wisdom and familiarity of the people we have here to talk to you in terms of finding the right internship for you and how to best present yourself to be in the best position for success. So we hope you'll get a lot from their wisdom, and we're going to go in. Each panelist is going to talk to you for 5-10 minutes about some specific points. Then we're going to open it up for questions and let it roll. And we're shooting to end at about 11:15. All right, so let's start with Dawn.
So good morning, everyone. I'm Dawn Fallick. I'm a professor here at the University of Delaware and head of the journalism internship program. And I wanted to say not that long ago, but it's that long ago. When I was a student, I myself had internships. I started at Dance Magazine and Long Island Parenting News. And, I wrote whatever they wanted me to write. And at Dance Magazine, I helped organize the file cabinets. And then I was a student at Wisconsin-Madison at the time, and I got an internship at the Capitol. Oh my goodness, Capital Times. And then I ended up at the Washington Post. And so, the number one thing that I would suggest is to keep your mind open in terms of internships. And really try to get a variety of clips and experiences. What I'm going to talk about here, we each kind of have a little bit of a different subject, is what internships are looking for from you. We just had Carla Correa, who's head of the early career program at the New York Times, come into class, and she was talking about how you don't have to go to one of the big journalism schools. She's looking for students who have a variety of life experience and a variety of clips. And she's looking to see that you've covered a number of things. You don't just cover sports. You don't just cover city council. So you have a variety of clips or broadcast or podcasts. If you bring extra skills to the table, that's fantastic. Coding skills, SEO optimization. So really try to think about what can make you stand out. If you are just starting, you absolutely want to reach out to student media. So, at the University of Delaware, we have a radio station, WVUD, we have STN, which is the broadcast station, and we have The Review, which is the student paper. And you don't need experience to start at any of those things. You walk right in, or send an email or text, and get yourself involved, and just know that everyone started at the very beginning. When I started at the Badger Herald at Wisconsin-Madison, my first story was Condom Day, and I had to follow a guy dressed as a condom walking around the campus for the day. And my last name is Fallik, so that went over really well. But I had no idea what I was doing. I just, followed him around and asked questions and figured out how to write the story. And I worked with other students to get that experience. So I find the number one thing that stops my students is fear that they're going to look stupid, that they're not going to know what they're doing. And everyone starts in that same place. So I don't want you to be afraid. Just you kind of have to throw yourself in. The other thing that I hear a lot from internship coordinators is that they want students who are familiar, you all should love this, with AP style. So some internships require an AP style quiz or test beforehand. They want to see that you can write in journalism style, whether it's AP style or broadcast style. And they want to know that you are familiar with basic journalism ethics. We don't accept anything for free in journalism unless it's a review ticket for something that we are covering. We aren't sponsored. We don't pay for interviews. You know how to professionally conduct an interview. You know how to introduce yourself, know what on the record, off the record means, and just sort of basic journalism ethics to keep everyone out of trouble. And then the last thing, I took off my glasses, so now I can't read my own notes. You're welcome. Is to really think about the cover letter. And I put an example of sort of a template online. A lot of the cover letters, and I know we're going to talk about this some more, they start with, my name is Dawn Fallock and I'm applying for the position of blah, blah. This is your opportunity to show that you can write and to tell a story. And you want it just like a lead in a broadcast or, a news story, you want to bring that person right in and get them caught from the very first sentence. So don't be afraid to, to show your writing chops, and to, a journalism cover letter is not like an accounting cover letter. And so I gave an example for students, by the way, Bill Marimo, not at the Philadelphia Inquirer anymore, but just to give students an idea of how to organize it and make sure they talk about their skills and also why they want to work for the place that they're applying to. So I don't want to go over time, so I'll pass it on to the next person. Tom, who is that?
Good.
Oh,
That
and I
would
put
be...
my contact in there just in case you have any questions.
Oh, good. Thanks, Dawn. Let's go to Jackie next.
All right, thank you. Besides those wonderful tips that Dawn just gave you, I think one of the things that's important when you are getting ready to interview or go to a job fair is to think about where you want to apply and what you know about that organization before you get there. I can't tell you how many students are caught flat-footed in an interview when somebody says, well, what do you think of our paper? Or what do you listen to our station? What's your favorite show? Or, you find out what somebody doesn't know really fast. So you ought to do a little homework before you get in. The thing that worked for me very successfully when I was a student looking for internships, and even in the early jobs I applied for, I would go to a job fair and I would go to a paper that I knew wouldn't hire me because I didn't have enough experience, but I would ask the rep where they got their hires from. What papers did they look to? What were the things that they were looking for in a strong candidate? And then usually they would say, well, so-and-so's the city editor at, and I'd say, well, is that a place I should apply? And they'd look over my clips and they'd say, yeah, well, you should talk to so-and-so. And then I'd ask if I could use their name, because that name would usually get somebody to give me a call back or respond to my letter when they wouldn't have done it otherwise. And so you want to make sure that you are building your network as you go along, that you get to know people, you talk to editors, you send them a few clips, a note from time to time, just to let them know what you've been up to so that they can follow your progress. Because I think that most editors want to feel that you really want to work for them and that you're just not looking to land somewhere. And so as you're building this relationship, they will remember you, and maybe an opening for an entry-level reporter comes along and they say, aha, I remember talking to Jackie Jones. That kid seems really interested. And then you get a letter or a call or a text or an email, and kind of move on to the next step. The other thing to know is whether if you can talk to anyone who has worked there, interned there, get them to tell you about their experiences at the internship, how it went, what's expected of you. Make sure that you ask as many questions as are asked of you. A big mistake that a lot of students make is to not have any questions for the interviewer. And so the interview ends real fast if you know the person says, well, what can I tell you about our shop? You know, what do you want to know? And you've got no questions. The first question that really opens up the conversation, I think, is to ask what makes a successful candidate, and ask the editor what he or she is looking for, how this position helps the mission of the news organization, what they hope will come of it, where people who have been in that role before ended up down the road. It gives an opportunity for you to get a bigger picture of the organization and whether that's a place where you really see yourself fitting in. And I think the other thing I want to mention is make sure you talk to the people on your reference list before you put them on the list. Make sure they agree to be a reference, know what they are likely to say about you, and don't put down someone who cannot attest to your writing, editing, shooting skills. That's a killer if you just have somebody says, yeah, well, she's a really nice girl, and I think, you know, she'll do well. That doesn't help the editor at all, and it certainly kind of puts you to the back of the line. So those are my handy tips. Huh?
Great tips, Jackie. Thank you. You know, it's funny when you were talking about questions from the applicants. I mean, I was thinking, I think I mentioned this to you, that one of the papers where I was the editor was the Daily Record in Baltimore. And it's a small business and legal publication. It's a niche publication, but so when I would go to job fairs, there was not unusual if a student hadn't heard of the Daily Record or wasn't quite sure what it was. And so I would always ask, well, what questions would you like to ask me? Or what questions do you have about our organization? And I can't tell you how many times the applicant just froze, and the best they could do was, well, how often do you come out? And I would say, well, as the name would imply, it's the Daily Record. But there were just, it was, and I felt sorry for him. It's not that hard a question, because you can always turn it around, as Jackie said, and say, well, what are you looking for in your interns? What do you ask of them? What skills are you looking for? It's a real easy way to do that. But the how often are you do you come out? Not so much. Thank you, Wayne. Okay, let's move to Adrianne.
Hi, everyone. A little shout out to Tyrese. I'm an Arizona State graduate. So, you know, go get them. Go Devils, fork them. So I highly endorse everything that Don and Jackie have already told you. You know, I'm standing on the shoulders of giants here, but, you know, there is a lot to getting an internship. And, you know, I'm not sure how, you know, what level to hit this, but, you know, the first thing you need to do is set realistic expectations for your search. You know, I find a lot of students, especially for first-time internship seekers, they come in and the only news media that they know is NPR, the Washington Post, NBC News. Okay, those are all great places to look for internships. But if you haven't worked for student media, or if you haven't had a previous significant internship, you might not be ready for those yet. So, you know, dig a little deeper and find some of the other places that you can look. Start with maybe your first internship might be a local internship. The MDDC internship is an excellent local internship to Maryland, DC, Delaware. So if you're from this region, this is an excellent place to start, because you already have some grounding in this territory. You know a little bit about this space. And if you know something about this space, you'll be more successful in trying to figure out how to cover it. So set realistic expectations for your search. That doesn't mean that you don't apply to these places, but when you are rejected by, you know, the Washington Post because you've never had an internship before, don't take that rejection personally. It just means that you have tried, you got great practice out of this. Maybe you got a little feedback from somebody who read your application, but set more realistic expectations. Look locally, look small, look daily, look, local journalism is more important than ever before. So you really need, and they really need you. So they need somebody with your talent, training, and interest in producing local journalism. I would also say prepare your materials as well as your network. So we talked a little bit about both already, but there's really no substitute for a clean, crisp, clear presentation to these internship recruiters. So that means your resume doesn't have to have red and yellow and pink and green color all over it. That's not going to call attention to your ability to get this job. Start with something, that's easily read, that's clear about your expectations as well as your talents and skills. Put it in reverse chronological order. It's that simple. A nice big bold name with some clear contact information at the top. Black and white is just fine. Recruiters want to be able to use this, and try to keep it to one page because that's our industry standard. From there, you want a cover letter, and I just fall back down to Dawn, who's provided a great guide, but tell your story right up front. Don't start with this, I'm a graduating senior at blah, blah, blah university, and I'd like a job with your company. Okay, everyone says that. That doesn't distinguish you in this pile. What your objective is with all these materials is to get pulled off the pile. Because, if you have 200 applications, red, green, yellow, blue is not going to get you pulled off the pile. What you have to say for yourself, your personal story, your character, integrity, honesty, ability, skills, these are the things that are going to get you pulled off the pile and get you attention by these recruiters. Finally, use your network. Use your network to prepare your materials. So call me, call Dawn, call your favorite professor in journalism, your favorite news director in town. Have them look at your materials. Say, I'm on the hunt for an internship. Do you know anything that's available? Would you mind looking at my resume to make sure it's okay? Then let all those people that in your life who have done journalism before know that you are looking for something. You hope that they say, hey, my friend so-and-so is looking for, just somebody like you. Why don't you give them a call? So work the room, work the network. And then lastly, and Dawn and Jackie already mentioned this, know where it is that you're looking. So if you're looking at Tom Linthicum's Daily Record, know that the Daily Record is a daily publication, that it publishes business news, that it's based in Baltimore, that it looks at, it has a legal department, that, know a little something about this place. Know if there's another alumnus from your university there. So anyways, that's kind of my top tips overview. I don't want to take too much time because I'm sure you have a lot of questions.
Okay, great. Thanks very much, Adrianne. Appreciate that.
Mind if I add something to that?
Please go ahead.
Okay, the part about knowing the companies, I wrote in the chat that the old St. Petersburg Times wrote a letter almost apologizing to me for not taking one of my candidates. And in fact, right behind me is a photo of the student. She was one of my Hampton students, and she was often underestimated. And I try to explain to my students about internships. There are some highly competitive ones where you have to have an internship before you can apply. That right. Washington Post, New York Times. St. Pete Times is in that category because I'd say the St. Pete is one of those finishing schools for the big time. It's a AAA newspaper. Well, they had that rule too. And they said the student, they said they were so impressed with her because she didn't have an internship, but she spent her summer editing a day camp newsletter, freelancing at a local weekly, but they had that kind of hard and fast rule, you have to have an internship. She's about 7 or 8 years out of school. She's doing just fine because she had that kind of motor where she's not going to let anything down. And finally, I'm taking up too much of your time. I'm sorry we don't have more students on this call. My dean had been hounding me to get people in the chairs, but culturally, we're starting to get to that point where it's still a kind of a confidence issue. I think I've seen some of you reference that, where I'm seeing people who have students who have that kind of talent, but they're not sure of it. And we just have to just convince them that it's okay. We want you here. And obviously you're here, you want them here too. I'll stop.
Great, thanks for that, Wayne. Really appreciate that, those insights. Why don't we open it up for general questions? Well, let me start just while everyone's thinking of something that you want to toss in, and that is we have a couple of outstanding full-time professional journalism schools here, but a lot of the students and a growing number of students who apply for our internships maybe come from liberal arts colleges or places that don't have a formal journalism degree, or they take creative writing here. They might take an English course there. How do you advise these folks in terms of the best way to present themselves to be competitive for a journalism internship? Or are there any ways that they can, any certain kinds of even liberal arts courses that they can take that would make them a more attractive applicant? Or what sort of things can they do? What sort of skills should they work on honing? And that's for anybody.
I'll take it. I think that a couple of things you can do. One, which was mentioned earlier, is being involved with student media. So I know we have a sociology major in the group. Work at the student paper or radio station or the TV station, get involved. Just because journalism isn't your major doesn't mean that you can't be a journalist. You should also take a course or two for your electives that will be able to give you some idea of what journalism is like and get you familiar with that style of writing, because it's very different from other kinds of writing. And I think one of the big problems that I've seen in the academy is that people think writing is writing is writing. And they're very different. A technical writer is different from someone who's covering cops and courts, is different from someone who is an investigative reporter or long form writing. There's some differences as well as similarities between broadcast and digital and print. And so you need to get familiar with that, and you should have a relationship with a faculty member in the major, and just kind of get to know them the same way students who are already in the program are going to get to know faculty and people who can help them navigate the system. You need the same kind of relationships. And so the fact that you're willing to go out and meet those people and try to build those skills and make sure that you talk to the right people, I think can only help you. And so I know it's kind of heresy as a dean of a program of journalism and mass comm to say you don't have to be a journalism major, but you don't. I have good friends who have had great careers who started out as English majors or poli-sci or something like that. But what they all had in common was that they worked for student media.
Well, and I asked that question as someone who does not have a journalism degree myself. I was a poli-sci and major in history minor, and they served me well. But I had to do a lot of networking and skill building and working with student media on my own.
I just want to add that Delaware does not have an official journalism minor. We are a journalism major. None of my students are journalism majors. They are all minors. And so some of the students that have succeeded are the ones who have English degrees, but also science degrees. I have quite a number of neuroscience students, wildlife biology students. So if you want to write for the Sierra Club or, you want to cover the environmental beat, having a major in wildlife biology or environmental humanities or whatever it is, that's a huge benefit when you go in for an internship, because you have that knowledge and that background. So I just wanted to add that.
Great, thanks. Adrianne.
What's the name of the just retired editor of the Washington Post? I'm having a senior moment.
Marty Barron.
Marty
Barron.
Marty Barron. So he's a graduate of Bucknell, and they don't have a journalism program, but he was editor of the campus paper. And so it served him pretty well, didn't it?
I should say.
Because now he's a folk hero.
Right. Adrianne.
So I'm represent one of those snooty journalism schools. So, but I would endorse absolutely that you do not have to be a journalist. And I would remind you that if you are not a journalism major, but you have a strong interest in journalism, journalism is one of those professions that prizes people of all disciplines. We love characters. We love people who have knowledge, in-depth knowledge in lots of other areas. And so when you present yourself, hopefully you will have some student media experience. Hopefully you will have learned something. Maybe you'll have a double major. We have a lot of double majors in our college because we believe that you should have disciplines other than journalism, that you will express that in your materials, because that's going to make you interesting to journalism editors. They're going to want to talk to you about your strong interest in environmental science, or your ability to produce a play, or whatever that thing is that you've devoted so much of your time to, and still have this interest in journalism. My guess is that will make you fascinating, and make sure that that's like front and center in your materials.
Excellent.
Just to jump in here for a second, I sit on as a non-voting member of the MDDC selection committee for the internships, and we have a lot of students who may not be journalism majors, and if they're not doing, if you're not showing a specific interest in journalism, there's always a disconnect. Like, why is the student even applying to this internship? You need to tell your story. Like, I get involved with student media, as many of our panelists have said, but also make sure you are clear about that connection, about what you want to do and what that internship will do for your career aspirations. Because on the other side of that table, we don't know. We don't know that backstory unless you tell us. And so you have to shape your story and make it seem logical why you would even want to go out for this internship.
Good points, everyone. Thank you. Okay, who else in the audience has something you'd like to ask?
I have a question, and if we don't have time to go over this, maybe there's somebody I could connect with to talk more about it. But I'm trying to quickly read over the internship program. But I would love to get more information about how this actually works, and if the students are placed in the internships, or if they still, like, if you're a clearinghouse and then they have to go interview with whatever paper or a magazine or whatever it might be. We do have a journalism major. It's a mass comm, but with the journalism concentration at Towson. And I'm super excited about this because I really want to market this to students, but I just feel like I need to learn a little bit more about it. If somebody wants to share that now or wants to connect later, that's either one is fine.
Well, we can probably do
the commercial.
we can probably do both because we can give you the short version here, but we'll be glad to talk to you in depth offline. But there is the students apply, and there's certain criteria that they're told that they need to include so many writing samples and this kind of thing, and references and professional references. Then the intern committee that Rebecca referred to, of which I'm a member also, vets those applications, and we get to a list of finalists for people who we would want to interview. And then we conduct those interviews. More recently, they've been Zoom interviews because of pandemic related problems. Before that, they were always in person. And then we match, we do the best possible job we can do in matching skills and interests and location of the interns with the newspapers who are most most interested in interns, and also frankly have a good track record. We have some of our members love to have interns, and they have a great experience working with them. And they're usually always on our short list of places that are probably going to be highly considered for an internship. And we sort of make the match. The intern, the editor at the newspaper needs to sign off and say, yes, they have a follow-up interview and say, yes, this is the person that we want. This will be a great fit. This is terrific. And then it's an 8-week internship, and we mentor and provide training throughout that 8-week period. And we can tell you a lot more about that offline. But we'd love to have, traditionally, we have not had a lot of, you're at Towson, is that right? We've not had a lot of applicants from Towson. Had some, but not a lot, and would love to have more.
Yeah, I'm going to work to try to change that. So
excellent. Well, we'll help you any way we can.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
put my contact information to you, Marcy, as well. And Tom, I don't know if you noticed, Adrianne had a question specifically for you. What are you looking for in an MDDC internship candidate?
I'm looking for someone who, back to Rebecca's point, knows pretty clearly why they want to be a journalist, and why this intern program they see it as important to them developmentally. The essay they have to write for us is very tight. It's what is it, Rebecca, 350 words, that's all.
Yeah,
and so it's a tight news story, so there's not a lot of room and people, so you really need to know clearly why you want to be a journalist and how this is going to help you to make maximum use of that opportunity. We're looking for people who are intellectually curious. We're looking for people who have social media skills. You don't have to be a whiz at social media, but a decent background in that. And the more skills you can bring to the table, as in real life, whether it's taking pictures or shooting videos or using social media, the more attractive that's going to make you as an intern applicant, not only to the committee, but also to the editors at the individual newspapers. And you need to be interested in local news, because that's our members, and these internships are all focused on local news. If you know you want to be a foreign correspondent one day, that's great. Tell us about that. But if you want to be a foreign correspondent next summer, no, probably not.
Now, to that note, and we have this group here, here's something I've heard from an editor, a particular one who was at managing editor of the Virginian Pilot of Norfolk, and now she's at the Houston Chronicle. We have to convince student applicants when they're writing that essay or writing their bio, be themselves, because too often, and this is what this editor said, they're trying to please adults. So they write in this officious tone that's getting them nowhere, where I'm not saying to be loose as an ungrammatical or slangy, but just be yourself, be your 18 to 22-year-old self, and not try to think you're trying to write to please adults. Tell us what you really want.
Mm-hmm.
And
I think that's good advice.
I think that's terrific advice, because as an intern, you're bringing something to a newsroom that they don't already have. It's a new perspective. Yeah. It's a fresh way of looking at things. It's perhaps just a different set of skills. So don't ever discount what you bring to the table just naturally. And certainly for MDDC internships, and I think for many others, our internship, you are treated as a real live working journalist from day one. So editors need to get over the hump of thinking like, this person can do it. You know, you will come out of this program with 35 to 40 published clips. That's a heavy load. You'll be, you know, reporting on a variety of subject matters. And so, you know, you'll want to have clips that not everything is for a class where you've been able to work on it for 3 weeks. You know, you need to be able to show that you can write on deadline. even for a weekly publication, there's
Yeah.
deadlines for the web. And I would also counsel people to really think about their recommendations. You know, our internship program application closes November 15th. Don't spring a request for a recommendation the week before on your professor. They're not going to think about it. They're, you know, you'll be lucky if they just dash something off. Be thoughtful about how you're going to tell your story, would be my thoughts.
Yes.
Other
Oh, and it looks
question?
like, Adrian, did you put out somebody's resume model as well? What's in the chat for people?
Yeah, I figured, you know, I talked a little bit about like sort of a nice, plain, clean looking resume. So I thought I'd show you what that looked like. So this is one of my former students' resume with, you know, her contact information removed. So it's a real resume, but it's done in Word, which means that anyone could do this resume. I'm kind of down on templates. There's a Google template, for example, that all my students like to use. And as soon as they try to do something different with it, it breaks. And then, you know, it doesn't print correctly, or it won't, it goes off the page, or something bad happens to it. This particular model, you know, stays put. Anyone can do it. And it's kind of in a nice, easy to read format. So you can kind of see what that looks like.
Thank you.
Great,
I'd like
thanks,
to add
Adrian.
real quick. If you are doing things on social media, if you've got a blog site, if you are doing a podcast, if the stories that you do for student media are getting a lot of hits, you might want to mention that in your resume or in your cover letter, that you increased viewership because of the stories that you did, and kind of allude to them. Or if you have something that is a particularly unusual kind of story. I remember when I was at the Philadelphia Daily News, we had an intern one summer who ended up doing this story about a guy who had acquired a number of exotic animals, and he was keeping them in an apartment in the city. And it caused a terrible ruckus because he had tigers and ostriches in the next, and they could smell the birds, and they were trying to get out. So he moved the birds to his mouth. It was a whole long story. It was hysterically funny. And it was the kind of story that got editors interested in him, because he told the story about how he went and interviewed this guy, and he said, yeah, you know, I had to tell the police not to arrest my mom because she didn't really understand what was going on, because I never really told her, but I brought the ostriches to her house to protect them. And just went on from there. It was hysterical. People were talking about it all over town. And so having that kind of anecdote to talk about, or be able to show how you boosted the visits to your news organization's site, is something that helps, you know, kind of boost your visibility to potential editors.
That's not only a terrific example, Jackie, but it also reminds me a question that applicants often get in these interviews is, tell me about a really interesting story that you did and what made it special and how you did. Now, something like that would be perfect, but but think ahead of something like that. It's good to have, would be good to have a prepared or semi-prepared answer to that, or your example. You know instantly what your go-to story example is going to be, because sometimes applicants can be caught off guard by that question and not come up with something that's very good, but they'll think about it later.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's another thing. After you've had the interview, if you think of something you should have said, a brief note, you don't have to write a long thing, but to send a brief note and say, I enjoyed meeting you. I'm really interested in this job. And I also meant to mention, and then mention the thing that you think they might find interesting.
Just to add on to that, I just want to say writing a thank you note is really important, and something that most 99% of my students don't know to do. If you want to send it by email, that's fine. But I'm telling you, as somebody who has been on the other side of this, getting a handwritten note that just says, it was fabulous to meet you. I'm happy to answer any questions, and I really look forward to working with you at wherever. It makes an impact because almost no one does it. So, you know, write that thank you note, mention something specific that you talked about, and write a note to every single person that you met that day. It really does make a difference. So I just wanted to add that in. Thank you.
Great advice, Dawn. Thank you.
Well, I was going to go to the issue of interviews since we talked about that a little bit. You know, I am a big believer in being prepared for an interview. So you have to think about what, or ask around about what kinds of questions are going to be asked at an interview and prepare some basic answers. You know, at the most minimum level, you should be able to tell people why you're looking for this particular kind of job and who you are as a professional. So that's your, you know, people call it your elevator pitch. You know, it's a 30-second or so or less sentence that says, you know, this is who I am, and this is what I think I can do, and this is why I'm applying. So if you can get, you know, some idea of that in a quick, you know, a quick sentence, and you practice it a little bit, you know, that's one out of the way. The second piece is, you know, what do you want to do with this? You know, where are you going from here? Have an answer to that question. It doesn't have to be, I want to be managing editor of the Philadelphia Inquirer by age 30. It doesn't have to be that. It can certainly be, you know, I really want to, you know, tell the greatest stories of the, you know, most unusual people I can find, or whatever floats your boat. So that's another thing. And then finally, you know, we have all this wonderful technology. There's no reason why you can't be prepared for an interview. So set up your, you know, your camera phone in front of you, you know, have somebody, one of your best friends, your mom, your, you know, somebody ask you a few questions, film yourself answering them, evaluate your performance, and then, you know, do it again and again until you feel more confident answering these kinds of questions. You can find all kinds of question lists online for various things. You know, we have a career center. We're lucky enough to have a career center that has an interview stream function that has all these questions pre-programmed, so you can avail yourself of that. But honestly, you know, hand a list of questions that you pulled offline to your best friend and have her ask them to you. Film yourself answering them online. You will feel much more confident in any interview.
Absolutely. Great tips. Thanks, Adrianne. Well,
So-
we're winding down here. Is there another question anyone wants to sneak in? Going once, going twice. All right, I'll take that as a hint that we're done at this point. We really appreciate everyone being here. We appreciate our panelists especially. Thank you all, Jackie and Adrianne and Dawn. And we appreciate the questions and the comments from everyone, and we hope you found this helpful. You've got contact information from us for us. So also if you have questions that come up after this, or you want to reach out to one of the panelists with a follow-up of some kind, you know, let us know. We'll be happy to help make that happen.
Great. Thank you, Tom. And just a couple wrap-up things. We will post this on our YouTube channel. We have a tremendous amount of training that goes on at MDDC, and we archive all of that on our YouTube channel, which is, we're easily found at MDDC Press everywhere, on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Our next training session, we're doing a 3-part series on census data. So our next segment in that series is going to be October 20th from 9:30. All that is free. If you don't get our Friday planner, just shoot me an email. I'm rsnyder@mddcpress.com. Happy to sign you up for that. You can also see all of our events, news, etc. at our website, mddcpress.com. So no pressure for our students, but I expect an internship application from each of you. We are delighted to have you join us. If you have questions or need some more support, just reach out to me or any of our panelists. We all want to see you succeed and join the ranks of working journalists. And internships really are what makes that happen. editors say that what they're looking for in new hires are a quality internship that that showcases published clips, a recommendation from somebody they know, and confidence that you have the ability to do the work. And so internships are really the thing that kind of creates that network for you and gives you that experience and lets you know you're on the right path. So I encourage you to stretch and reach out and try. And look forward to seeing you at an upcoming event. So thank you all very much.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.